Today we're going to be doing a topographic survey of this beautiful city center using the Geomax Zoom 95 total station. All right, so we're going to be setting two control points, one right here. We're going to be calling this point 101, and then we're going to be setting a second control point at the end of this building, and that'll be control point 102. We'll be setting up the total station here at 101 and backsighting 102. So the intersection here of this concrete will be point number 101. All right, now we're going to come to the other side of this building, and we're going to set our second control point. Okay, and we're going to set the second point right over here, just like before, at the intersection of this concrete. And this is going to be point number 102. All right, now that we've set all of our control points, it's time to pull out the total station. Now this video is proudly sponsored by Geomax, and today we're going to be checking out their Zoom 95 total station. All right, here we go. Now with this total station, I'm excited to show you guys just how easy it is to capture data for topographic surveying and how the interface of the data collection software works so well with this total station. All right, we're gonna power it on. So now in order to position this total station above the point, you can see that there's a laser plummet being shot out of the bottom of the total station. And this laser is pointing all the way down to the ground, and we want to make sure this laser is directly over the point that we're occupying. All right, so I'm going to make sure that this is directly in the center. There we go, looks good. Now I'm just gonna step on these legs. I know I'm on the concrete and not on the grass, but it's always good practice to make sure that your tripod is stable in the ground. If there's a little rock or just somewhere that the leg could move to, stepping on the legs will ensure that it doesn't go there. All right, now I'm going to level this out and make sure that our level bubble is in the center. All right, now I'm going to use the leveling screws on the tri-brack to finalize our leveling. All right, perfect. And we'll hit okay. All right, now that we set up our total station, it's time to set up our job and start collecting data. Now, in order to do data collection, you're going to need either an Android-based phone or tablet. So I've got a Samsung Galaxy tablet right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and load up XPad. There we go, very nice. And this is going to be a new job, so we'll go ahead and start a new job. So for the job name, I can name this whatever I want. I'm gonna go ahead and call this City Center. Done. Now I could reference different jobs. If I have a code list I wanted to reference or other GIS features, anything that you might have standards for or templates for, you can go ahead and include it into your project. I don't have any of that, so I'm just gonna leave it to none and go on to the next part. So now I'm gonna come up to the top here and I'm gonna select coordinate systems. Now I can set the type of coordinate system I want. So if I'm gonna be capturing data in stapling coordinates, I can set this to NAD83. Or if I wanted this to be in latitude, longitude, I could set it to WGS84. However, in our case, I'm going to be setting up a local coordinate system, so I'm not going to define a coordinate system here. I'm simply just going to keep it to no system. Now I'm gonna go ahead and accept these conditions. All right, now we're inside of our job, and the first thing we need to do is communicate with the total station. Down at the bottom, I see this TPS. I'm going to select TPS, and it's going to connect to the total station. So the TPS is connected, as you can see, Zoom 95, and now we have our total station status. All right, looking good. Once we've set up the job, it's time to go ahead and begin our setup. So I'm going to lift my controller and Prism, and we're gonna head over to point 102. All right, I'm approaching point number 102, and this is going to be our backsight point for our project. All right, we're gonna make sure that we're right here in the center. We're going to then release our bipods and make sure we level out our rod. All right, looking good. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and raise this rod up to 6 feet. That way I can make sure that my head doesn't block it and nothing will disrupt the connection between the Prism and the total station. Now let's set up our job. I'll come up over here at the second tab where it says survey, and up at the top, I'm going to select station setup. Now it's going to ask me which method of setup I want to do. For the first setup, since we have no data collected yet, we're gonna go ahead and select no orientation. So no orientation. Next, and it's gonna ask me for the position of the total station. So I'm going to simply change the point number here to 101 because point 101 is where the total station is set up. I'll hit done. And now it's going to ask me for the instrument height. So let's take out our tape measure and measure the instrument height of the total station. All right, so I'm going to use this tape. I'm going to set the bottom of it here on the point, and I'm going to take a measurement to the center of the total station. Okay, and it looks like we are getting 4.97. Now that instrument height of 4.97 is not the true instrument height, it is actually a slanted height. Taking a look here, the XPAD software allows us to compensate for the slant of the measurement. So if I go into the slanted height, which is 4.97, you can see that it calculates the true instrument height at 4.96. So this gives us a more accurate height of instrument, therefore also giving us more accurate data. I'll hit accept, and now we have our instrument height. For code, this is a control point, so I'm just going to call this CP. And for the position, I'm going to create our local coordinate system by making the northing 5,000, easting 10,000, and elevation 100. So 5,000, 10,000, and 100. The reason that we use these coordinates rather than 0, 0, 0 is that if we were to move west or south, then the coordinates would become negative. So to avoid negative coordinates, we offset it by 5 to 10,000 feet in the horizontal and about 100 feet in the vertical to ensure all of our coordinates are positive. Okay, with all of that, I can select accept setup, and our setup is complete. Now that we've set up the total station, it's time to set up the Backsight where we're standing at point 102. I'll go back to station setup, and I'll select new setup. And now we have known position of the total station. I'll select yes to our station position is known. And now it's going to ask me for my orientation mode, and I'm going to Backsight by azimuth. This allows us to control what the azimuth will be, and now I'm going to set the azimuth here to be 0. I'll hit next. It's going to ask me where my total station is set up. We're set up on point 101. I'll select next. I want my azimuth to be 0. And I want to store my Backsight point, so I'll hit next. And now it's going to ask me what to name the Backsight point. So this is point 102, so I will label this 102. And then the code, I'm going to simply put CP for control point. And now it tells me to aim to the Backsight point, so let's head back to our total station and aim it to this prism. Okay, so looking through this right now, I'm going to find my prism. Here it is. And I'm going to fine tune the location by moving these knobs. Okay, we are directly at the prism now. All right, now that the total station is aimed at the Backsight, I'll hit measure. And now we have set up everything. I'm going to accept this setup. And okay. Now this also did save our points. So if I go over to jobs and select points, you can see I have both point 101 and 102, and the coordinates for 102 have been calculated. Now I can go back, select survey, and click survey points. All right, now I'm going to remove the bipod from the rod, and now we can start to take foresight measurements and start collecting data for our topographic survey. All right, now that we've taken the Backsight, we're going to start taking foresight measurements. If we look here at the bottom right, you can see there is this unlock button. By tapping it once, it gives you instructions on shortcutting this in order to double tap it or long tap it in order to quickly find the prism. If you just tap it once, you're going to get a large variety of search options, and it'll ask you which method you'd like to use. For me, I'm just going to have it search to the right, and it's going to rotate and find this prism for us. So search right. There we go. It found where we are. Now it's going to go up and down. Lock. All right, and now it is locked on our prism. So we can start collecting data, and the beautiful thing is, no matter where I go, this prism is going to stay locked to the total station because it's going to follow it thanks to the robotic functionality. So this point right here is a concrete shot. So I'm going to come down to the code here, and I'm going to code this CONC, concrete. I'll hit done. And as you can see to the left here, it automatically switches it from a point to a line. That's because I've predetermined that this code is a line code rather than a singular point code. XPAD gives us the ability to select certain codes and make them either lines or points, and that makes it a lot nicer to create line work within the software. So points like curb, gutter, center line of roads, buildings are all going to have line work associated to the points. So for the point number, I want to change this so that it is delineated to a topo point. So I'm going to make all of my topo points at 1,000. So we'll set this to 1,000. Okay, everything looks good here. We are locked with our total station, and I'm going to make sure that our rod is nice and plumb, and I'm going to select measure and store. All right, and the point has been stored. Now I can pick up my rod and we can go over to the next point. All right, I'm gonna come over here to where these two concrete pieces meet. And this right here is going to be my next point. And this is going to be point 101, same code. As you can see, the line here is active. If I select on it, you can see concrete and it's active. We'll go back, make sure this is plumb, and I will measure. All right, now we've got our second concrete shot. Now I could go down this line right here, but it's outside of my scope, so I'm gonna stick to this point and I'm gonna move this way and collect more data. The first thing I see in my way is a manhole. This looks like a sanitary manhole. So I'm gonna switch my description code to SMH, which stands for sanitary manhole. Okay. Now XPad already knows that this is not a line, this is just a point, so it's already switched this over to a point on the left. So now I can just make this plumb and take the observation. Measure and store. Perfect. Now I'm going to take this concrete shot right here. And as you can see, this is not the same line. This line bends and goes this way, and this is a completely different line. That means we need to start a second concrete line. So I'll type in conc for our code. It's gonna ask if I should create a new line. And I'm gonna go ahead and say yes. All right, so now this is line number 2, conc. Make sure our rod here is plumb, and store and measure. Perfect. And now over here at this point, this is a wonderful example of what is known as a multi-code point. As you can see, this is the end of this little concrete line, but it's also the start of a new line. It's the start of the back of curb line. So here's how you can input multiple codes. So on the screen here on the left, you can see where it says line number 2. I'm gonna select line number 2, and I wanna add a new line. So I'm gonna select new. I'm gonna come down here to my second description. Wait, I missed it. There it is, back of curb. I'm gonna select it, and now it's gonna activate the back of curb line. On the bottom right, it says multi-codes. I'll select multi-codes, and then I can select the 2 codes that I want. So I want the second concrete line, as well as the back of curb line. I'll go back, and now both codes will be added for this point. Make sure we're plumb, and measure. Perfect. So now this line was created, and we're going to be able to start a new line for back of curb. I'm gonna come down to this point right here. This is the gutter line. So we'll change our description to GU for gutter. And there we go, it has a new line for gutter. And we will measure. All right, nice. All right, so there's a straight path right here. I'm gonna go down this straight line. All right, right here is our next gutter shot. So we'll go ahead and measure and store. Perfect. I'll come up over here and we'll take another back of curb shot. So BC. All right, it's gonna ask me if I wanna start a new BC line. I'm gonna say no, because I wanna keep using the BC line that we started over there. So we'll say no. This is gonna continue the BC line. I'll look here and measure. All right, now we've got both of the back of curb and gutter lines. This looks good. So since this is an arc right here, I'm gonna click on line number 1, and right here on the left, I'm gonna select to the right of it. That's gonna create an arc for me. So I'm gonna go back now, and this right here is gonna be an arc point. So I'm gonna come over here to the center of this arc. All right, looks good. And we're going to measure. Very nice. Down over here is the gutter shot. I might as well take the gutter shot as well. So I'll change this to GU. Do I want to change the line? I'm going to say no. I will select this though and change it into a curve. All right, now we're at an arc. And I'm going to measure. Very good. I'm gonna come down here to the bottom of the arc, which is at this point right here is the bottom of the arc. We'll go ahead, make sure we're level, and measure. There we go, now the arc has been drawn. I'll come up and do the same for the back of curb. It's gonna ask me, do I want to change the line? I'm gonna say no. Too many cars on the road. I'm gonna come up here where it's a little safer. All right, and measure. Perfect, now both arcs have been drawn. All right, now I'm gonna keep up with my topo. I'm gonna go a little bit faster now, so keep up with me if you can. This right here is a brick layer, so I'm going to shoot this point right here. I'm gonna code it BRK. This is gonna start a new line for me because this is a brick line. Take a look, make sure that we are plumb, measure and store. Very good. Looks like this line will keep going and then it will end right at this point right here before it bends. So this will be our next shot for BRK. Measure. All right, good. And now at this point right here, I see a water valve. This water valve needs to be identified, so I'm going to change the code to WV. There we go. Now it's water valve. It's changed to a single point. I can now measure the water valve, make sure we're plumb, and measure. Very good. Right next to us is a fire hydrant. Now I'm going to set my rod here, tilt it slightly to be right over the hydrant, and that way we have a representation of where the hydrant is at. I'll change my code to HYD for hydrant, and I will measure and store. Perfect. Now we also need to set a benchmark for our topographic survey. A great place to set your benchmark is on the arrow of the hydrants that you see. So here is a perfect opportunity to set a benchmark. I'm going to hold my rod on this arrow in order to measure its elevation and use it in my drawing. So we'll set it up here just like that. Change my code to BM for benchmark, measure and store. All right, perfect. All right, let's continue our back of curb and gutter shots. This right here is a back of curb. Do I want to change the line? No, I'm on the same line. I'm going to change this from an arc over to just a simple line. Plumb, measure, and store. Good. Same goes for the gutter. GU for gutter. Done. No, we're not creating a new line. We'll change this back into a line and not an arc. Make sure we're plumb. Perfect. BRK. BC. GU, GU, back of curb, go. Okay, now we've got a light pole right here. I'm going to just get as close as I can. This does not need to be perfect. So this is a light pole, so I'll just call this LP and we'll measure. Perfect. This right here is going to be a back of curb shot. Okay, good. And down over here, I have a gutter shot. However, we also have a catch basin right here. So this is, once again, a multi-code point. So I will select GU. I'm not going to start a new line. Measure and store. Very good. Now I realize that I missed the mailboxes that are over there, so let's head over there and get those positions before we forget. All right, I'm going to change this to M box for mailbox. Done. And I'm just going to set it right on the back of it. Again, stuff like this, you don't need to be super accurate with it. This is just a visual representation in our drawing. All right, measure and store, measure and store, and measure and store. Great. Let's head back over to where we just were. All right, next I'm going to get this tree right here. So I'm going to code this tree. And for something like this, I think standing as close as I can to it is going to be difficult, and being this far away from it is going to be kind of difficult. So I am going to show you how to do the offsets. So to do an offset, you want to first of all put yourself in line between the object and the total station. Now that you're in line, you want to approximate how far are you away from the object. If I guess here, I am 1, 2, maybe 3 feet away. So I'm going to change the code to tree. So up at the right here, I'm going to select direct measurement, and I'm going to change this to offset distance. All right, so I'm going to select measure and store. All right, and now it's going to ask me what kind of offset I want. So forward, right, and up. I actually want to switch this over to back, and I'm going to say 3 feet. So it's going to move the position of this point 3 feet behind me, and so now I can hit accept. And now I've measured the position of this tree, being 3 feet away from it and offsetting the position from the measurement. All right, let's keep going. All right, code here is BRK. I'm not going to create a new line, and measure and store. Good. This is back of curb, measure and store. This is gutter, measure and store. We have a bench right here. So I'm just going to measure the center of the bench. Bench, single point, measure and store. Good. We got another tree right here. So we're gonna get ourselves in line with the total station. Put ourselves at 1, 2, 3 feet. Right here is probably good. This is a tree. We're doing an offset, measure and store, and the 3 feet back looks good. I'll accept. Here we go. BRK for brick. We'll measure and store. We have gutter here. Measure. Back of curb. Measure. We have a light pole. Again, pretty close. Measure. Very good. Another bench. Just get into the center of it. Measure. All right, good. All right, right here we've got a manhole. This looks like a water manhole, so I can go ahead and code this WMH for water manhole and measure and store. All right, good. This also looks like a water manhole. Interesting, they're two next to each other. Same code, measure and store. BRK right here. No, this is not a new line. Good. Light pole. Good. Looks like we got a sign right here, so I'm going to come up to the sign. And actually, since it's slanting, I could probably get it right where it's actually at. I'll change this to S for sign. Measure. All right, good. All right, now I've measured all the points along the street. I'm gonna measure now points along the building, including existing finished floors, downspots, and some additional concrete shots to help with elevations. All right, I'm gonna take a regular concrete shot here, not one with a line, and I've coded this as just C. So when I type in just C, as you can see, it's only a singular point. So now I can go ahead, make this plumb, measure and store. And I've got a point here with an elevation next to the building corner. Now in front of each door, I'm going to take an existing finished floor elevation so that we have the elevations at the bottom of every door. So I'm just gonna code this EFF for existing finished floor. Again, it's a single point. We'll come here in front of the door and I will measure and store. All right, good. We'll come right over here. We'll take the same shot. And now this right here is a down spot. So I wanna take the position of this down spot. I'll just code this DS for a down spot, and I will measure. Very good. Existing finished floor, existing finished floor. Here we have a down spot. All right, and we're gonna get this existing finished floor right here, EFF. And with that, I will have finished collecting data using my Prism. All right, now that we've finished collecting data with the Prism, I'm going to be using reflectorless shots on the total station to measure the corners of the building. I'm also going to find the segment between each unit within the building, and that's going to be achieved using the laser plummet on the total station. So I'm going to come up to the top left here where it says 360, and I'm going to select this, and I'm going to change this over to reflectorless Prism. As you can see, the height has been adjusted to 0 because now we're taking a direct measurement. I'm also going to select this and turn on the laser pointer to help guide us as to where the total station is actually pointing to. All right, now we'll position the total station to be at the corner of this building. All right, we are at the corner now. As you can see right there, the laser is pointed right at the corner of this building. And I'm going to go ahead and code this one B for building. And as you can see, XPad has already identified that this is a line, so I'm going to simply click measure and store. Nice. All right, I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna shoot this corner between both of these units, right in the center here. Perfect. This is also B, so we'll measure and store. All right, good. All right, next corner between both units. That looks good. Measure and store. Good. Next unit. Measure and store. Last and final unit. All right. Measure and store. Perfect. All right, that's it. That is how you do a topographic survey using a surveying total station. If you want to learn more about Geomax's Zoom 95 total station, be sure to check out the link in the description and make sure you let them know that Rami sent you. If you guys enjoyed today's video, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I'll see you all next time.